Good morning, everybody. This is Jack Gleason with Startuptrading.com. It is 9 o'clock in the morning, July 9th, 2020, Thursday, for our economic reports for last night and today. We had news out of the Japanese markets at 1:59, 2 a.m., German trade balance all day. We're going to have Eurogroup meetings this morning. Housing starts out of the Canadian dollar, unemployment claims out of the U.S. markets. And final wholesale inventories will be at 10 a.m. 10:30, we're going to have the natural gas storage at 1:01 p.m., the 30-year bond auction. And then in the overnight session tomorrow morning, we have a couple of events out of Europe. Yellow Star, nothing big. And then we're going to have the employment change in unemployment rate for the Canadian dollar tomorrow. So we can start looking at the Canadian dollar for potential movement. I'm going to begin the day looking at silver. Where is it? There we are. And we're going to go to a weekly chart. We are running into and have run into a weekly trend line in the overnight session. This goes all the way back to 2016. The highs of 2016 connected to the highs of 2019 have now come into play here in 2020. Now we had a different trend line on the weekly that we had, kind of broken out really at the beginning of the week. So we went literally from that trend line breakout all the way up to the highs. And this, I just continued to be, bullish on silver coming out of what was the March lows. But you can see once and this is a monthly chart now, but this is a wedge that has existed in silver. You can even argue all the way back into 2014. So that's about 6 years of consolidation, and we have some pretty strong candles. Once we clear what is really the highs of 2019, there's not much above that keeping us lower. So I'm just going to have that level marked up. That is all the way up there. I'm going to edit that color. It's like 1975. So we'll go down to the hourly time frame, and I'll show you guys these sequences we're in since then. So there was a 50% retracement from what was the lows of, actually switch, these are my drawings here. There was a 50% retracement from what was the lows of June 18th to the high of July 1st. Now we pulled into a 50% retracement on the 1st. It was high to low and then retested there on the 2nd. We started taking off here this week, coming out of this trend line stick. Now, we've now blown through those targets. Yesterday, we completed them. Those were the 1918s. And today, we've gotten above them. Moving forward, this is the aggressive extension that's going to determine if we're going to go straight up or if we're going to get a deeper pullback. Now, we actually held this yesterday and completed targets. Our overnight highs are a negative 61. That same anchor, new high here, has had its participation at the 38% retracement, 1921.80. The 50% is untested, and I would still consider that to be valid if we do come into a first test. That would right be at the overnight lows. That upside target is 1958, and if we go back once again to the weekly chart or that monthly chart, the next resistance level we have is really at that 1975, which is the highs of 2019. So we are fully through the highs of 2020. It was right around 1890. We traded it once the first week of the year. We traded it before the sell-off. We traded it in the beginning of June, and here we are breaking through what was and you can even, if you look at this kind of looks like a head and shoulders, inverse head and shoulders pattern and a neckline break. But that is the pattern we are currently in, and our upside target is 1958. This is a pretty significant breakout on a commodity, and commodity breakouts I really like to pay attention to. Obviously, we have a gold breakout too. I'll go over that next, but gold has run into, and part of yesterday's video, we had talked about this, but gold has run into we have two monthly closes up here. We had the monthly close of 2011 August, and then the monthly close of September 2011. That's what we ran into yesterday as a resistance level, and that was our part of our trade plan in the morning. That level was 1825. Now we did get up to 1829, but we came back below that level. Now there is a daily extension in gold as well. It is from the high of June 24th to high. We've just traded it here right in the morning. We had one test at 6 a.m. Our second test was at 8 a.m. We just dipped in a little bit into lows, retested the highs from Tuesday, and we've caught a bid. That gives us an upside target of 1837.9. So both silver and gold are inside of daily extension longs. So, they're getting in the situation that they're really like, you can't obviously, fade any market on a small enough time frame, but we are through 2020 highs. We are in breakout modes in the precious metals, and we've been in some consolidations. Gold broke out first, silver just broke out really yesterday. And we are in breakout modes in both of those metals. So they continue to be, I'm really only looking at longs. And these deeper extension pullbacks should absolutely be paid attention to with respect on the daily. So upside targets right around 1837, 1839 here for gold, and then silver, as I mentioned, 1958, but really no resistance until that 1975, which takes us back to the highs of 2019. You can just see the reaction. So pay attention to those markets long. Moving on to, I'm going to go to the S&P 500. We're going to back out to a 30-day hourly chart. There has been this extension in the S&P 500. Now, we had lows in the S&P 500 on June 29th, and that was a 38% retracement of a daily extension. But the high from 3040 to high traded once, it traded twice, it traded 3 times. The profit target of that extension was on Tuesday. Now, we came off the 38% retracement when the market was technically closed for 4th of July. We traded that at the close. It was at 31.12. That same anchor new high. Now, yesterday, I guess I had a little too much hope to anticipate the full 50% retracement, which would have been a retest of the lows of Friday. Well, we never got there. What we did get was that 38.2, which I also had marked up. Regardless, we have confirmed upside targets at this point in time because we have totally broken through the opposing 50% retracement short, which confirms our upside targets of 32.18. And we still have daily targets all the way above at 33.72. So confirmation of targets. Now, what would be a gift? We'll see if we can get it. Would be a halfway back long, and maybe it'll trade today, but a halfway back long from Wednesday's low to high. If we could get that halfway back along from Wednesday's low to high, that'd be a 31.4775, and that would be an ideal entry into the long trend. And if we make a new high, actually it looks like we've just peaked a new high, we'll just adjust that draw up. So like that would be now to this morning's high, I believe. So paying attention to this 31.48 zone. Obviously, we need a little bit of a pullback to get there, but that would be an ideal entry into the long trend for the ES. Moving on to the Dow. Now, the Dow, if you guys remember, the Dow is the weaker market, all right? The Dow had a 50% retracement short on Tuesday, complete targets, and then that Tuesday's high to low actually traded in the overnight session and completed targets. And then we even had participation on the full 50% retracement short in the Dow. That was 25,971. That was a laser setup from yesterday's morning trade plan. Now, excuse me, we ran into those levels and came out of them like right at the 10 o'clock time frame. We rotated all the way back to the bottom of the range. Woo. And we're right at it. We haven't technically broken out of this 61.8. The Dow is, a little bit of a lagger here. But once we break it, we can expect this full 50% retracement pullback. As far as the support level we have come off of, it's a little interesting. For whatever reason, the morning lows of the Dow, the RTH lows, the regular trading hours lows of June 29th, there was this traditional anchor, and the traditional anchor is 24,963. Now, we were bid at the 50 in a front run, completed targets on that Tuesday. We had that same low to high bid in a front run, completed targets Thursday. The 50 traded Wednesday, targets completed Thursday. And then that same low to high traded as the ES was trading its extension that Friday on July 4th. The Dow came into this extension or this traditional again. So for whatever reason, this anchor has been used over and over again. There seems to be buy programs attached what are the lows of yesterday? Well, they're the 38% retracement of this move, and they were the 50% retracement short target of the high intraday Tuesday to low. So we had a target completion and a 38 retest there in the Dow. So I'm just going to leave that setup up here. And really, if you're going to wait for the higher time frame draw, it's waiting for a break of the short and then looking at the long. You can see there has already been a participation on that 50% retracement, so I will draw that up. What I see here, the Dow is a battle between 25,971, which is the 50% retracement short from highs, but at this point, we've already had multiple tests, and the halfway back long, 25,845. So a little bit of a ping pong match between those levels. Winner takes all. Upside targets, if we do bid off the long side, is 26,116, and then that higher time frame target would lead us to 26,354. Moving on to the Nasdaq, which only goes up, and when it goes down, it's only so it can go back up. We ran into, and I'm going to go out to this daily down. There was a couple of sequences. Once again, I was super hopeful that we would come into deeper pullbacks, but we just do not have the oomph to pull back deeper. Now, so I'm going to delete that deeper pullback level for now. We can come back if the Nasdaq breaks down heavy. That will be in play at some point in the future, but right now it is just not. We had a traditional that came out of the lows June 29th. We blew through those targets on Monday. Monday, we completed 2 daily targets. Those daily targets were 10,515 and 10,532. Really, we were unable to get back below those profit targets. So what we had was the extension from the high of June 23rd to high. Now, if you actually, and it's interesting because if you draw to the high, this was technically front run. Now that was at 10,495. Our lows were like what? That was like a 10-point front run, a 10-point front run, and then we broke above the 61.8. And at the end of the day, this is the more technical sequence here. At the end of the day, we had this traditional, okay, and that just totally blew through profit targets, through its negative 23, through its negative 61. What we're going to have here this morning in the Nasdaq, and here's the go-to setup, is an extension from 10,628 to high. Okay, we're going to have that extension, and that gives us this as a support zone. Higher time frame upside targets based on the daily extension are 10,788, and I'm going to assume we're eventually going to complete the negative 61s of the higher time frame draws. The biggest negative 61 I have above us is 11,143, and we'll be there. We just keep going. We just keep going. It's amazing. So don't short the Nasdaq. All right, lesson learned. Oil had the oil inventory report yesterday. We are running into, and I've mentioned this a few times, but if you go to the daily chart, we're coming off. First of all, this halfway back is like from the highs, I think I want to say 2017 or 2018, really significant resistance level. The daily candle low before the oil breakdown has been a resistance all week. We've been rejected from it's like a 4105, 4106, somewhere around there. But the initial rejection on Monday, we did reject yesterday. And it does look like there is some participation here to the downside. This is a candle. Now, ideally, let's see, we break this. Ideally, at this point in time, I'm thinking we do come back to the bottom of this range, but inside of this channel, there has been really no continuation to either side. And I'm begging for there to be continuation to either side, but there just really hasn't been. So what we'll look for, and I want to check it right now, is if we can get, this is a little bit of we did trade a 50% retracement short. Let me just look, So we had, boom. Yeah, this is a little bit of a sloppy halfway back short, but once again, we're in the middle of this range, so I would expect it. So I would look for resistance just at the full 50% retracement short for the high of yesterday to low, and that lines up with right at our breakdown. So right now, that's a 40.80. 40.80, and then support below. I eventually see us coming down into a halfway back from Thursday, the 25th of June, too high. And that really brings us all the way down into 39.08. 39.08. So if we do, and you can see we're basically in this wedge from Wednesday of last week, so it's been a week, and the break of this wedge would lead to a stop run lower, and that's where I would expect us to run down into. Moving on to the USDJPY. There's a halfway back long from the lows of the 23rd. Now, we've been seeing a lot of 4-pip front runs in the USDJPY. That halfway back long is a 107.11, and there's a traditional from the midday high 107.59 to low that targets a 107.7. So down in this range here, which is, a possibility we get it today, 107.11 to 107.7, we're going to have a target hit on the short, and we're going to have a halfway back long. So that's the zone I'm looking at. Unless we break above 107.43, then we'll reevaluate the market. Aussie dollar, top of the range. If we start taking out, I'm just going to draw this little trend line here, but if we start breaking through this topping formation, I would look for a short back to the bottom of the range. Other than that, I'm not really interested in this market. Euro had an extension break. So yesterday we blasted off the open in the euro. There was an extension, completed targets, same anchor low broke, and so therefore this is a valid first short. So if we get up to the highs here, like a 136, I would think that's a fade. We've already traded this 50% retracement, so you can enter on a second test. If we complete targets, you can look for that next measured move, but right now there's nothing to do. There would just be a 78 fade if we got the highs. And I mean, you could argue that there's a halfway back long from the lows of the week to high here, and that's been front run as well. So we need to be paying attention to that. So resistance 136, support 113.14. The pound is in an extension from the highs of Tuesday to high, and if we crack 126.20, we got somewhere to go lower. But right now, I was thinking we could possibly get a fade here, but really at this point in time, our upside targets are 126.84, and then we have a negative 61 from the traditional. So we can rotate all the way up into like 126.90s before we're really through all of our targets. This extension continues to hold. We're bullish above a 126.20. The CAD has a Red Star news event tomorrow, which is important to note because we've retested a 50% retracement long from what was the lows of June 10th to the highs of the 15th. We pulled halfway back on the 23rd. We made a new high. We retested. We also had some downside targets that completed here. If we continue to consolidate here, so there was buyers at the close yesterday. There seems to be some consolidation here. These candles, big wide body candles, all of a sudden they're starting to get tight. People don't agree that the price is going lower. There's buyers coming in when you see this type of sideways movement. So the CAD very well could be putting in a reversal down at this support level that would lead us back to the top of the range, considering we have a Red Star news event for tomorrow. But that's going to wrap up my morning trade plan. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. If you have more questions about trading, check out the links below. I got a course and chat room that's super helpful to anybody learning how to trade. Everybody take care. Have a wonderful day. I will share my levels with you guys in the room, and we'll get after it. Trade safe. But that's going to wrap up my morning trade plan. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. Make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. If you have more questions about trading, check out the links below. I got a course and chat room that's super helpful to anybody learning how to trade. Everybody take care. Have a wonderful day. I will share my levels with you guys in the room, and we'll get after it. Trade safe.